everyone, it's Frankie-Lou. I'm coming to you today from the kitchen of the Grow To Gather Homestead, where I've spent quite a bit of time over the last few days repotting a whole bunch of my indoor houseplants. I don't think it's probably a big surprise to any of you who are my subscribers that I absolutely love plants, but you might think that just applies to outdoor gardening. I'm also crazy about indoor plants. I guess I just like having a lot of life around me. We have over 50 houseplants in this place. It's one of the reasons we chose this home is because of the amazing light that we get here. And that's not enough for me, I guess, because I also have plants that I care for in offices because I just really like being around them. So I get a lot of questions all the time about plant care, so I thought that this might be helpful. I'm just going to give a few little tips today, general tips, and if you guys are interested in seeing more about different kinds of plants and different kind of techniques, please let me know and I'll expand this video a little bit more, okay? So first off, back when I worked in the garden center, this was the number one thing I would tell people. The number one way that most plants die is due to overwatering. Okay, it's invariably, people would often bring us plants, and I've seen in people's homes that basically most plants tend to get overloved. And another thing that happens is people want to follow some sort of set program, but when it comes to watering your plants, there is no set program, okay? Some plants like to be drier, some plants like to be moist most of the time. I can't really give you a set number of days that you should be watering your plants, but just to keep it in context, in terms of office plants, the office plants that I choose to put in other people's office and maintain, I visit those plants once a week. Okay, and some of them get just a tiny little bit of water in that once a week. Some of them do get a really deep watering, but in general, most plants don't need to be watered so frequently. Okay, so what I do to see if a plant needs watering is I lift it. Okay, so I lift up my plant, and if it feels light, in general, it probably does need to be watered, unless it's something like a succulent or a cactus that doesn't want to be watered very often. If your plant is feeling light, that's a good time to water. When you are watering your plants, make sure that you choose the best water that you can. If you live somewhere where the water is chlorinated, then you want to probably have some water sitting out to off gas a little bit of that chlorine, because that's not great for your houseplants. We live on a farm with really hard well water, so we have an RO system both to help our plants and so we have softer water, and that's the water that I choose. Another thing that is a good idea to do when it comes to watering plants is a lot of people will just water from the top, and I will do that, you know, when I have to do a quick round, but most plants will benefit from having a bottom water. Okay, so basically when I have my plants, I have nice decorative pots, but I usually don't have them in these pots permanently. I pot them up in these nice little plastic ones so they can lift them and place them in a tray to bottom water, okay? Because, and it's also the other reason I do this, that I keep them in these pots, is when it does come time to repotting, removing them from a beautiful decorative pot can be kind of tricky, okay? Whereas it's a lot easier to water it well and then remove it from one of these. So I just basically choose pots that I know that my various sizes will fit in. And like I said, I just finished repotting 20 of my house plants. So everybody got shifted into different decorative pots, and it's kind of fun. It looks like a whole new house because they're all in little bit bigger pots and all around the place. It is a good idea to bottom water your plants when you can, and make sure that it does have good drainage on the bottom for that reason. And also, most plants don't want to be sitting in standing water, and if you do overwater, there's a good, having those drainage holes is really important so you don't rot the roots of your plants. Now, another big mistake that people make when they're putting house plants in their home is they just see some beautiful plant in a magazine or something and say, I want that. And they go out and they choose a plant that's completely inappropriate for the space that it's in. There are these little tags usually, right, that come with plants. Read that, okay? Because if you're choosing a plant that's supposed to be high light and you're sticking it in a dark, dingy little office or somewhere where there is no natural light, it's not going to thrive. There are plants that thrive in low light situation. I've actually got a short little video about that you can see. If you want to have a specific plant in your home, like this is a lovely philo, one of my favorites, varieties of philodendrons, it needs a lot of nice filtered light. So it actually sits pretty close to here because my kitchen gets a ton of filtered light in it. All right, so I know it really likes it here. Okay, this is one of my smaller ones. It really, really enjoys that, okay? But I have some snake plants that can live in almost any lighting conditions, and they're the ones that are tucked away in corners. And on the tops of my kitchen's counters where there isn't as much natural light, I have lots of pothos, okay? Because pothos can live in really low light. It's really important that you actually look at those details, or else you probably will end up being a very unhappy plant parent, and your plant won't be very happy either. Make sure that you're choosing an appropriate plant for the lighting scenario that you're in. And honestly, this is where your small garden center is going to be your friend, okay? Because they know their plants and they take care of their plants, and they're going to be better able to advise you. So you might want something like a big, beautiful fiddle leaf fig, right? Because they're gorgeous. But they're also notorious for not liking change. And you take that big, beautiful plant that you spent a fortune on, and you stick it, say, near a doorway where there's going to be frequent drafts coming in and out, you're basically dooming that plant, okay? So really, really do consider the conditions in your home and what's going to work in your home, all right? Otherwise, you might end up being unhappy. Now, there are some workarounds. Like for instance, let's say you do want to have some succulents on your desk and you're in an office that doesn't have a lot of light. Put a little light, get a nice decorative lamp, put that on the desk, and stick a grow light bulb in it. I've done that in a lot of spaces and they love it, okay? So there are workarounds. Just make sure you understand the conditions that those plants need before you go place them somewhere that they're not going to do well in, right? Okay, so when it comes to fertilizing, yes, you can fertilize your plants. A lot of people tend to over-fertilize. What I do is I kind of think out with my own home plants is actually I don't purchase any additional fertilizer. I have fish tanks in my home as well. Big surprise. What I like to do is water my plants regularly with water from my fish tanks. Basically, I do regular micro cleanings of my fish tanks, take out water changes, and instead of just throwing that down the drain, I throw it in my plants and they really like it, right? Like I've never had to buy fertilizer for my indoor home plants at all because my fish are doing that for me, and it's a nice mild, like the little bit that's in the water is a nice mild fertilizer that's sort of constant. It's more natural too. So another essential for plants is the soil that you use. I often find when I see little plants from stores and stuff that they're in completely woefully inadequate soil, or that they need potting up right away. And so I always make sure I have a lot of soil on hand. Now, yes, some plants do require a special soil. Like my orchids, yes, I buy special medium just for them. And my succulents, yes, I buy special stuff just for them. But the majority of my tropical houseplants, I don't buy tropical houseplant soil, okay? I actually have found that I really love using this stuff, okay? It's a Pro Mix, their BX. Now the reason for that is, and I'm not trying to make a commercial here, it's just that over the years that for the amount of repotting that I do and the amount of playing with plants, that yes, I use it for some of my stuff in my outdoor garden as well, but it works great for my indoor garden. One of the reasons why is because it has been inoculated with fungi that forms a symbiotic bond with my plant, and it helps that uptake of nutrition. And I can't argue with how my plants have thrived since I started using that, okay? So it's also one of the reasons why I don't have to worry as much about doing heavy fertilizer, because with this soil, I'm getting good nutrition exchange with the mild fertilizer that I'm using from my fish tank water, okay? So there's a whole, I really could talk about plants all day, but I won't, I promise. I just wanted to give you some basics here. So number one, choose the right plant for your space. And if you need help, that's what those friendly people at the garden center are for, okay? They actually do tend to know their stuff a lot more than they will at the big box stores. B, watering. Make sure you're choosing the best water that you possibly can for your plants, because they can be fussy about it, and that you're not overwatering, okay? Check the weight of your pots. And C, make sure that your soil is a good soil. Check to see, like, it was time to repot a lot of these. If your plant, if you got a bunch of roots coming out of the bottom, it's time to repot, okay? For most plants, that's a good sign if you see a lot of roots coming out of the bottom. And make sure you choose a good soil. You can purchase tropical plant soil if you like, but honestly, I've been really happy with my BX Pro Mix, even though it's I find it's less expensive than purchasing those little bags, to have a big one of those bags around to use for all sorts of things around here. So I hope that was helpful. Like I said, if you have specific questions about houseplants, let me know, and I will make a little video about that. I hope you'll subscribe if there's other stuff that you're interested in that's going on here at the homestead. And as always, I hope you'll take this chance to grow together today. Have a good one.